us to awaken him. How will he find us when he comes?
Awake and ready.
And when he asks us to dedicate ourselves ever more perfectly to him, how will he find us?
Awake and ready.
Let's start with the prayer, friends. Divine Mother,
Divine Mother,
Heavenly Father,
Heavenly Father,
dearest friend,
dearest friend,
beloved God,
beloved God,
great masters,
great Master,
Jesus Christ,
Jesus Christ,
Babaji Krishna,
Babaji Krishna,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Swami Sri Yukteswar,
Swami Sri Yukteswar,
beloved Guru,
beloved Guru,
Paramahansa Yogananda,
Paramahansa Yogananda,
saints of all religions,
saints of all religions,
we bow before you all.
we bow before you all.
Divine Mother,
Divine Mother,
give us the courage
give us the courage
to evermore keep moving towards Thee,
to evermore keep moving towards Thee,
despite obstacles,
despite obstacles,
darkness,
darkness,
and all doubts.
and all doubts.
Keep us steadfast
Keep us steadfast
in our quest for Thee,
in our quest for Thee,
and allow us to help others
and allow us to help others
as we have received.
as we have received.
Om.
Peace.
Amen.
Come here while I sing you of emerald hills, of valleys and meadows so fair, that all who have seen them have carried away memories in their hearts, friends, like the lilacs of May. Oh, my song is the story of the lilacs of May. My song is the story of deer on the hills, of larks that soar seeking the sun, of nightingales lifting the curtain of night, as with music they bring down heaven's blessing of light. Oh, my song is the story of God's blessing of light. Come join me in singing of that emerald isle, of flowers that like jewels besprinkle the lea, of waterfalls eager to embrace the wide sea, as we with our Maker united would be, as we with our Maker reunited would be. Come here while I sing you of emerald hills, of valleys and meadows so fair, that all who have seen them have carried away memories in their hearts, friends, like the lilacs of May. Oh, my song is the story of the lilacs of May.
Continue to meditate as you listen to these words on our affirmation for this week, self-control. If a lake is made to feed into too many streams, it will soon become drained. Similarly, if a person's heart energies are fed into countless streamlets of desires, he becomes drained eventually of even the power to feel. Sated with pleasure, he grows dry, blasé, and indifferent to even the greatest wonders. The sensualist imagines that by giving up his pleasures, he would renounce happiness. But in fact, the more one restrains his senses and learns to live in the peace of the inner self, the more he finds himself glowing with happiness, good health, and a radiant sense of freedom and well-being. Now let's affirm together, first in a strong voice, grabbing the attention of the conscious mind. I am strong in myself.
I am strong in myself.
I am complete in myself.
I am complete in myself.
The joy and perfection of the universe.
The joy and perfection of the universe.
Await discovery within my inner being.
Await discovery within my inner being.
And now a little softer, but still with great intensity. I am strong in myself.
I am strong in myself.
I am complete in myself.
I am complete in myself.
The joy and perfection of the universe.
The joy and perfection of the universe.
Await discovery within my inner being.
Await discovery within my inner being.
And now in a whisper, bringing it into the subconscious mind. I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe. Await discovery within my inner being. And now silently broadcasting it at the point between the eyebrows at the superconscious level. I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. And pray silently with me. I crave nothing that the world can give me, Lord. O infinite perfection, make me one with thee. Om, peace. Amen. Good morning again. Welcome to Sunday service. My name is Dharmadevi. This is Keshava, my friend, not my husband, Narayan, who is at home. His body is unwell. His soul, as he reminds me often, is indefatigable, which is a great word in and of itself. I'd like to read to you from Rays of the One Light. It's weekly commentaries on the Bible and Bhagavad Gita by Swami Ananda. And this is week 12. We are children of the light. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. It is common for people to perceive themselves according to their present realities. A person in ill health says, I am ill. Few say, I am well. It is my body that is suffering. People in a low income bracket say, I am poor. Only the unusual person will say, though outwardly I live in poverty, inwardly I am wealthy. Thus, when it comes to moral and spiritual development, people commonly identify themselves with their weaknesses and their mistakes. They consider it almost a sign of humility to say, I am a sinner. Though in effect what this means is that they identify themselves with their sinfulness, not with the soul's power to transcend all limitations in God. The great masters, including Jesus Christ, have always emphasized the divine potential of mankind. To encourage us, they address us as children of light, not of darkness. The Bible in the Gospel of St. John chapter 3 makes the point that our true home is not the mud of this earth, but the light of heaven. No man hath ascended up to heaven, it tells us, but him that came down from heaven. This passage continues, even so the Son of Man who is in heaven, emphasizing that Jesus, though he lived on earth, is perceived by the eye of wisdom as conscious, even in human form, of his true reality in heavenly spheres. The way to know God is to live in godly consciousness and not to bewail our imperfection and our distance from God. Jesus said, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And the Bhagavad Gita states, Seekers of union with the Lord find him dwelling in their own hearts, but those who, lacking in wisdom, seek him with impure motives cannot perceive him, however much they struggle to do so. If you want to know God, Paramhansa Yogananda said, live in the thought that you have him already. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind.
Good morning again, friends. I would like to begin with a reading from Whispers from Eternity. And I would like to encourage you to either close your eyes and mentally repeat this prayer with me, or try gazing into the eyes of one of the masters and beseech them for help and aid. And this is entitled, Be Thou the General in My Invasion of Ignorance. I bled, spreading thy name, and for thy name's sake I will ever bleed. With bloody limbs, broken body, wounded features, and bearing the thorn crown of derision, yet, like a mighty warrior, will I fight undismayed, even there where the skirmish is thickest. With the sword of calmness, I will stand firm against the hands of persecution. My disciplined armies of true aspiration, blowing trumpets in thy name, now march in triumph to seize the dark kingdom of God, denying souls. No matter how many blows I receive, and no matter how often the swords of persecution pierce my heart, I am content in the realization that thou knowest my craving to spread thy name. I will wear my tribulations not as scars, but as medals given for courage, and as inspirations to strive ever harder in my fight against ignorance. O Lord, help me conquer darkness with thy golden message of light. Be thou ever the general in my invasion of the continent of ignorance. So I chose that Whispers from Eternity, which may seem a little bit martial for the theme of we are children of light, but just a little bit. But I was having a conversation with Zoe last night, actually, and she said something. She said, well, if we're children of light, if we are this spark from God, if we are made of that light, why does it feel like we're surrounded by so much darkness? Why does it feel like it's so hard to get to that essential spark of what we are? You know, like, why is the game so stacked against us? And it's a great question. And it's one that we could ponder, and we will ponder for a long time until finally we overcome those forces and wisdom at last is revealed to us. But I remembered the story of the Mahabharata, which is one of the great Indian epics, which tells the story of our souls and our descent from spirit into matter and how we become bound in delusion. And basically, the five Pandava brothers who represent our five chakras, who represent who we really are, get engaged into a loaded game of gambling with delusion. And they play with delusion, and they repeatedly lose everything they have. Everything. And that's what happened to us. We came from the infinite, we were children of the light, and we gambled with delusion. We played with fire, so to speak, and because the dice were loaded, we lost. And in the story of Mahabharata, the Pandava brothers are thrown into exile, and they wander for 13 years in exile until finally, at last, they can marshal their armies and try to reclaim their kingdom. And that part of the story is where we are. That part of the story is where now our Pandava brothers, our great heroes of light, have awoken within us and are saying, I was not made for this darkness. This is not my reality. And we begin to scream and pine for something greater, because no matter how much we try to make the mud our home, it simply isn't our reality. You know, as Yogananda would say, no matter how much mud is heaped on top of gold, the gold will always remain gold. And so eventually there comes the point where we realize that we are made for something greater. We are made for something more. And it's that moment that we have to begin to marshal our forces of light, to begin the perhaps painful, perhaps long battle back home. And so that's why I chose this whisper from eternity, be thou the general in my invasion of the continent of ignorance. Because when we realize that we are children of light, that we are made in that divine image, the end game can only become then, well, I want thee, Lord. I want you. I want thy infinite kingdom. I want to expand my consciousness to embrace infinity. And there's all these obstacles in the way. And no matter how much we wish they would simply disappear, they will not. They will wait for us for a billion incarnations if we want, but they will always wait for us. Every obstacle, every opportunity, as Yogananda said. Because we can't just suddenly decide, okay, I get it, I want you, Lord, and then suddenly be lifted into infinite consciousness. We have to retrace our steps. We have to reclaim our kingdom. We have to expand our energy, expand our potential to be able to fulfill our original birthright of being sons and daughters of God. And so what I would like to just bring our concentration back to is this idea that every obstacle in our life is actually our greatest blessing, our greatest opportunity, because laden within that obstacle is the blessing to grow and expand ourselves in our courage and our capacity for energy and our capacity for calmness and joy under all circumstances. And that's really what life is all about. Yogananda said that this world, that life is made for two reasons, to educate and to entertain. But he said that so many people are neither entertained nor educated. And so let's change that. And let's make an effort for ourselves to be both educated and entertained. And I think one of the ways we can do this is by asking God for help with our battles. Because we can't just say that they don't exist and therefore they'll poof and disappear. We have to face them with courage. So we may as well ask for help while we're at it. You know, and the thing is, Zoe and I are reading a wonderful series of historical fiction novels based in like the 19th century when England's imperial power was kind of at its height. And it centers on some of the great English generals at that time. And it's a fun series. It's not overtly spiritual, so I'm not going to recommend it for that. But what's really interesting is we just read an account of a particular battle that the English armies were outnumbered 10-1. And the enemy, the English general, rode out and saw the army and turned around and said, "Well, gentlemen, we'll get to earn our pay today." And everyone said, "Are you kidding me? We're going to fight?" He said, "Absolutely." And he lined up his forces and they went to battle and they won. They won. But what was tremendous was apparently in the accounts of the battle and in the book we read, the general was just kind of making like quips and remarks like, "Well, chaps, here we go. We'll get to test our steel today." And the whole time was just making light of it. And like when his men would do something heroic, he'd be calling encouragement to them and like, "Well done!" And just would never let his own spirits be broken by the encounter. And it actually, and then like in the book, one of his aides, like they were like making jokes about it and laughing and having a good time. And it made my heart swell in reading that, because that's how we can embrace our obstacles in life, is with a smile on our face, calmness in our hearts. And when we have that combination, we can overcome anything. Yogananda said that calmness, he said those, even in the material world, those who can remain calm under all circumstances are invincible. And this general, in that case, epitomized that as being able to remain calm even under these impossible odds, he managed to lead his forces to victory. And we, I think, can feel some kindredship to that man in that moment, because sometimes it feels like we look out over the landscape of our inner kingdom and it feels like we're outnumbered 100-1 of our for the forces of darkness arrayed against our friends of light. And that's what it says in the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says that Arjuna, the great hero of our aspiring devotion, looks out across the battlefield and says that he sees his friends are few and the enemies are countless. But yet, the Pandava brothers are victorious. At the end of the Bhagavad Gita, at the end of all of our soul's journey, we are victorious. And so how is it that we get there? Well, in the Bhagavad Gita, it's Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna follows Krishna, who represents the Guru, represents God. And Arjuna says, Lord, be thou my charioteer. Wherever you take me, I'll go. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. Be thou the general in my invasion of the army, the continent of ignorance. And so let's take up that same call ourselves. And let's marshal our forces of light and of goodness, of hope and of love to expand and to conquer the kingdom of darkness that is encroaching on all sides. And let's expand our great armies of self-discipline, of self-control, to conquer those thwarting cross-currents of desire, to reclaim our ancient birthright. You know, I love that this affirmation that was partnered with was for self-control. Because if we go look back to the yamas and the niyamas, what's really interesting is one of the yamas, which are like the do's and the don'ts in the spiritual path, like attitudes that'll help us reach enlightenment. And one of the yamas is called brahmacharya. And it just means, basically it just means flowing with God. But on a more translatable level, it means non-sensuality, or not being controlled by your senses. And what's really interesting is Patanjali tells us that when you practice brahmacharya and when you perfect brahmacharya, the power that you gain from that practice is tremendous vitality and incredible power and vigor. And that's what we need to reclaim our birthright as children of the light, as children of God, is incredible dynamism, incredible power. You know, Yogananda said that the spiritual path is not for cowards. It's not for those who shy away from effort, but it takes tremendous power, tremendous self-will, tremendous grace of God on our behalf. And so one of the ways we can develop that is through self-control, because we are constantly receiving endless amounts of energy from the divine through our medulla. And this is why Yogananda gave us the energization exercises. He said their primary application was to teach us that we are not this physical body, but that we are beings of cosmic energy, and that this flesh is just frozen energy. And if we could only learn to control that energy, learn to tap into that cosmic flow of energy, we could perform great miracles in outward senses, but we could become great masters of ourselves. And so I encourage you all this week, if you feel inspired to, try renewing your practice of the energization exercises with vigor, with interest, with great devotion and respect, because they are, as Yogananda said, one of the greatest gifts ever bestowed upon mankind. He said that through the practice of them, they will transform our understanding of ourselves from being physical beings into the understanding that we are cosmic energy. And he also said that the more you can identify yourself as being energy, the more energy you'll have. And that's why in the reading it was said that most people, when their body is ill, they say, I'm sick. But as soon as we identify with the body, we're limited, even in the potential of our creativity or our capacity for work or be able to serve other people. Because as soon as this body begins to crumble, then our potential crumbles with it. But Swami Kriyananda was a great example of this. You know, when he was in his older years and he had cancer, and I mean, God, the list was long. I can't even remember everything. 2 replaced hips, diabetes, you name it, he had it. And they would wheel him into the hospital, and the doctor would take a look at all of his ailments, and they would say, oh my God, how are you feeling? And he said, I feel wonderful. Because he was identified with that energy. He was energy. The fact that his body was frail was of secondary concern to him. And just look at his life. He almost became more prolific as he grew older, more creative, more powerful in his ability to give. And so I encourage us, you know, we've been given these priceless techniques from Yogananda, from these great masters, to teach us to realize these things for ourselves, not to just take it on their word. Because I can intellectually understand that I'm made out of energy, but at the end of the day, if I'm tired, hungry, and haven't eaten all day, I'm still going to think that I'm tired. But if I can truly begin to understand that I'm made out of energy, then that supply is limitless. And, I really encourage you, chase after this. Make this experience your own, because once you experience this, once you taste this truth, it'll never leave you. You'll never doubt it again once you've experienced it for yourself. And I will share just a brief experience of my own on that account, which was when I was practicing the energization exercises 6 times a day. Many incredible things happened to me, and I discovered some tremendous things about the exercises and about myself. But on one occasion, I was about to go on a backpacking trip with my family. And after having done my 6th energization and meditated, I lay down to go to sleep, and I couldn't sleep. And I had to wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to go on this trip. And there I was, lying in bed awake for 3 hours from 9 until midnight, and I couldn't sleep. And finally, I slept from, I think, about midnight until 12:30, and I woke up again. But I couldn't, it's not that I couldn't sleep because I was agitated or restless. I couldn't sleep because I could feel so much energy moving through my body that it wouldn't let me sleep. I felt so vital and so alive that how could I possibly slip into sleep when my consciousness was so awake? So finally, I managed to sleep for about 30 minutes, and I woke up again humming like a battery. And I realized, this is hopeless. I'm never going to sleep. So I got out of bed at 12:30 in the morning, and I energized again, surprise, surprise, about 3 or 4 times. And I meditated. I had a beautiful meditation. I got Zoe, and we drove to Yosemite National Park, a 6-hour drive. We got out. My family and I loaded up my backpack, and I'm kind of the colloquial family pack mule. And so we loaded everything we could into a backpack that seriously stood about this tall. And it turned out that backpack ended up weighing about 135 pounds or something. And I put it on, and I carried that backpack all day long. And at about 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, I put that backpack down after having carried it and going back to help other people carry their backpacks up this mountain. And I still managed to sit down, meditate, have an inspiring meditation, and go to sleep, and wake up the next day feeling fine. And that was one of those experiences where I finally realized, well, gee, this was not done by my power alone. This was God's power flowing through me. And ever since then, I've never been able to tell myself with any degree of belief that I'm tired. Because now I know, really? Keshava, you're tired? After you've done this and this and this, you think you can possibly be tired anymore? So now I know for myself that when my body feels tired, it's just because I'm being tricked by delusion again. And I can tell myself, okay, well, my body feels tired, but I am well. I am energy. And just hang on to that reality. Make it your own. And eventually it will expand into greater and greater spheres of awareness and energy until at last we realize that truth, that we are children of light, that we are light itself, that we are God itself. Thank you, friends.